I'm looking at matrices that I really want to track, I think from a marketing perspective really is about brand impact and brand engagement, because ultimately I think with this whole proliferation of media and the number of avenues that people have to actually view content, I think engagement becomes obviously a big challenge, and I think for us that's a very, very important. It's not just about putting out that impression, but it's about what people do with that messaging that you've put out, and we track that very closely. I think the other important bit is the business impact that this messaging or this engagement and communication is really happening. And actually, thankfully, technology now enables and allows us to really try and figure out that, well, is this really having a direct or an indirect impact to business? But ultimately, that's what really matters. Yeah. The campaign from a Franklin Templeton perspective, that's really close to my heart. At least in the last couple of years. So we moved the communication track from really, instead of doing, being a financial services business, you always tend to think more logic, but not so much of emotion. I think we've really moved the other side and moved the needle to actually thinking a lot more about the emotion. So we released this whole campaign called the Marathon of Life, which was about showcasing real life human stories of running and trying to see if there was a link and a learning that you could get in terms of your investment. So the idea that was really mooted was that the philosophy that you need to follow if you want to be a successful long distance runner is exactly the same philosophy that you need to follow if you want to be a long-term successful investor. So it's all about starting early, it's about being resilient, right? It's about making sure that you have a goal that you want to really achieve. It's all about stepping up at a regular basis, right? So these are all facets of running which are important if you want to be a successful runner, but they're also extremely important if you want to be a successful investor. But we used the real life human story of a runner, right, with a very subtle message which just said that step up in life and your investments, right? I think that was a big shift in our messaging, and I think from that success we made sure that most of our messaging is more human, more real stories rather than something which is created specifically for the message itself. I do make it a point to dedicate at least 2 hours a week just to read stuff. So I do come across obviously a lot of either internet articles or articles in the newspaper which are insightful. It becomes a little difficult to read long content during the week, right? But I try and make sure that I collect all of that, and then every Saturday, Sunday, I try and dedicate a couple of hours just kind of going through the big points that come about from those messages. Yeah, I think from a marketing perspective, I think the biggest challenge is for brands to be relevant, in the mind space of the consumer, because today the consumer has multiple choices, right? And that's what we were talking about it at the panel, and the point that I was making is that today brands don't need to restrict themselves to say that, well, this is my one offering and this is what I have to offer. It's about how can you offer that total package to your prospective customer, because you never know what's going to really connect with the person. So when we launched the whole Reach for Better campaign, we didn't launch it just to say that, well, invest with us and we will help you reach for better in your investment. And that's obviously the most natural thing. But we have a long campaign about helping people reach for better in their careers, right? Because it's a very important aspect in people's lives. It's about, we're looking to do some other sleeves, like there is relationships, there's health. And if you look at all of that, they ultimately tie down that if you have some of these aspects right, and you can actually perform, it will ultimately draw down to saying that, well, okay, fine, you'll have enough for yourself to kind of go out and invest, and hopefully then we'll probably get a fair share of that investment. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that gone are the days of saying that, well, this is what I have to offer and this is what I'm going to keep talking to you about. it's no longer about that.
Space is shrinking.
You see, people's attention spans are shrinking, right? People's mind space is shrinking, right? So if you are going to go and tell somebody that, well, just come and read my paper, right? Why the hell would somebody want to read your paper, right? But if there was something that you were bringing more to his or her life, then he or she, the consumer, then starts connecting with that brand far more and better, because then he knows that, well, it's not just about coming to Franklin Templeton and buying that investment product, but if I stay connected with the brand, there are other aspects of my life that they can actually impact. It's always a pleasure. Unfortunately, I don't get so much of time to attend some of your events often. It's obviously, I mean, I remember when I started my career in marketing, the first newspaper that you actually always read was the Brand Equity on Wednesdays, because it at that time, at least, it was, and still is for a lot of marketers, that go-to document that you want to kind of look at least once a week to kind of keep yourself updated. So I mean, I think ET as a platform and Brand Equity in particular, I think does some phenomenal work in terms of delivering quality insights and perspectives to its readers. Yeah.